Coming up on this episode of the RunningRestaurants.com podcast, I'm joined by Dan Simmons, co-founder of Founding Farmers Restaurant Group, which has 8 locations in the DC area and the surrounding Mid-Atlantic area as well. They also have a distillery operation and a large catering operation, all doing around 100 million in annual sales. Dan had a number of eye-opening insights across a bunch of topics, from founding and growing to culture and mental health for the staff. We touched on tech, we touched on AI, as well as Dan's teaching at a local college, his mentorship in the community, as well as his podcast, which interviews DC area company founders. So a couple book recommendations in there as well. Really great stuff for you. Stay tuned. All right, folks, welcome in. I'm Jamie Oikle, owner and founder of RunningRestaurants.com. We're bringing the tips, tools, and techniques you need to make your restaurant more profitable and more successful. Joining me today is Dan Simmons, co-founder of Founding Farmers and also host of Founding DC. It also does some speaking, which we'll talk about as well. So Dan, I'm looking forward to getting into a bunch of stuff about the restaurant and what you guys are doing. But folks that may not know you, why don't you give like a quick commercial about the brand, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. I'm based in the DC area. Been a restaurateur and working in the restaurant business my whole life. 56 now. So we opened our first restaurant, my business partner and I, when I was in my early 30s. Family guy, wife, 3 kids in there, all around 23 boys. And our company, we have about 1,500 employees. We'll do about 100 million in sales this year, probably just over that. Full service, I guess, upscale casual restaurants. We also own a full-service catering and events company, and we have our own distillery as well. And that's eight restaurants within that total umbrella.
Yeah, that's great. You are seeing every aspect of the business then. If you have that many folks doing that much business and then branching off into some other side segments as well. So it's going to be interesting here. But I want to go back in time a little bit. Your about me page is really interesting. And it has some stuff on there, you're willing to open up, candid background talk, first restaurant kind of failed, self-doubt, depression, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. I mean, take us through that journey early on.
It's so easy for people to talk about their highlight reel, and probably nobody gets the chance to have a microphone stuck in their face unless there are some highlights. I've just never found like the highlights are really that interesting. I'm not sure there are that many lessons in the highlights. So when I have the opportunity to share, and just for me, what feels valuable, both looking in the mirror and sharing information and experiences, are the hard times, the learning times, the mistakes, the lessons learned, the applications of lessons learned. So our first restaurant failed. We lost all our money. Several important lessons learned there. But that led to living in my mother-in-law's basement for 3 years. The plan was to live in my mother-in-law's basement for a year. We had 1 kid at that point. We were starting the business. We needed that support to be able to, be entrepreneurs, for my wife and I to launch a business. That turned into 3 years. And we were just really, when the first restaurant failed, we were just really broke. Really broke, and owed millions of dollars. My business partner and I had both signed personally on the lease and then signed personally on the bank debt. The same time as we were doing that, we had started our restaurant hospitality and consulting business. So we doubled down on that, and that was able to grow and build us some cash flow. It took us 10 years to pay off the debts and the losses from the first restaurant. So you can imagine along that journey as a human being, you build a family and you've got stress and anxiety. And, for me, experienced my first panic attack, and then, also struggled with eating disorder, which is not ideal for a restaurateur.
Right.
And so for me, I've just always incorporated into my own leadership approach, sharing the journey, being real, being a whole person. And I've just always believed that that's actually how you create value in an enterprise, is tell the truth yourself, let your people tell the truth, and just work to be the best, most effective versions of ourselves. And in the long run, that really creates value.
Yeah. I can imagine the weight and the pressure of knowing that all that stuff is on the hook and then working through that. But something I didn't come across and I caught there, you said my wife and I. Is your wife involved in the business?
Early on, for sure, when my business partner Mike and I started the first restaurant, and did the website for our consulting firm. My wife, who's an artist, she's a painter. She was totally in it, like visual, creative, branding decisions, an important voice with lots of the restaurant decisions that we were making. And then, as the business grew and as our family grew, and so I would say now she's not involved in any sort of formal way, but I will say that her voice and her perspective and her eye for detail and her style
Yeah.
is a big part of the voice that's right on my shoulder, telling me what the right answers are.
Yeah, I tell you what, that eye for detail is something that I know I lack. So having that is great on the side. You know what we didn't do? Obviously, we'd be remiss if we don't talk about the farmer's concept, the eye of the farmer, the approach, the kitchen, how you guys approach food and sourcing and all of that.
The thing that makes our company unique is that our partners and our largest source of equity capital comes from a group and individual American family farmers. So when I say our company is farmer owned, I mean it. They own more of the company than Mike and I do. They are the majority partner. They are the majority of the equity. And this is a group of American family farmers, primarily from North Dakota, the North Dakota Farmers Union, in as an organization, and then in with individual farmers. And then we also have other states that are involved with us with state farming organizations, the Minnesota Farmers Union, Wisconsin Farmers Union, and then other individual farmers as just individual private equity investors. And I think, as every business person knows, capital comes with strings attached. So there's expectations that capital has. There's authority and power that capital has, both actual and implied, with influence and obligation. And so we are really fortunate that the strings attached to our capital insist that we prioritize buying from American family farmers, that we prioritize the quality of what we do, that we look at the community as a stakeholder, that we look at our employees as a stakeholder, and we look at our supply chain as a stakeholder. And so when American family farmers think about their business, they think multi-generationally. So that's what the farmers that I report our financial and strategic results to, that's a heavy, strong part of what they bring to the table is, let's talk about the long-term plan. And this has allowed us to do things like invest in a distillery, because it allows us to buy more American family farm product. It allows us to tell this family farmer story. And so might not be a great use of capital if you were just a private equity investor looking for short-term results, or you wanted quarterly year-on-year growth guaranteed, and you wanted to go fast for scale. I actually don't think any of those words are very good for a restaurant if you're truly committed to quality. And so we're lucky that our capital partners think long-term and are really devoted to these principles that allow us to make great decisions as chefs and restaurateurs.
I'm glad you kind of walked through it, so I don't need to belabor it, but I was going to ask you about having that structure and making decisions, but you already talked about it, and it really sets you up for this success, just the way you laid it out. I mean, they're making you think long-term versus folks that are thinking about quarterly reports and what's next week, but you can think bigger and strategically. So I love that. I want to talk about where you are in marketplace and how you guys are kind of, you can talk about where you're going perhaps, but 8 locations now, but DC based, more geography in the future. Give us the breakdown.
There will be an expanded geography coming. Our furthest one from DC is in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly, in a town called King of Prussia.
Sure.
And then we have 3 in Virginia, Northern Virginia, 3 in DC proper, 1 in Maryland. And so with the growth that we have coming, I am prioritizing what I think of as densifying. So we're really looking, probably as far south as Richmond, as far north as Southern Jersey, and looking to fill that in. It'll give us leverage on our existing supply chain. It will give us leverage on our existing talent. And we're not trying to be huge. We're trying to be awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess it's hard to do either of those things, but huge just doesn't interest us because huge for what we do implies we'd have to let go of some of our commitment to supply chain and cooking from scratch. And we'd have a ton of pressure to make the restaurants a lot smaller, and reduce the humans and the labor cost and buy probably some cheaper product. We just don't want to do any of that. I get why that generates huge ROI, especially for professional equity. And maybe at some point, founding farmers that will be strong enough and deep enough that we can go beyond our region. And I believe we will, but I think then we'll pick another area and densify there and sort of run a similar playbook again and be able to feature product and people. It's not so much that I need to buy locally. I'd rather buy from a family farmer in Michigan or California or Washington State than a corporate farm production outfit in Virginia. So we don't care so much about geography as we care about who owns the land, who makes the food, where does the profit go, how do the decisions on that farm get made. So we do have more growth ahead of us. We're actually opening a couple of little ones in airports, Baltimore and Reagan at DCA over the next year. So we'll test out kind of a smaller cafe size. So I think having our full service restaurants, cafes, something smaller, and then maybe testing out an upscale, something more sophisticated, smaller, would give us a range. We could use the products. We could keep learning inside our own system. The distillery, we only really want to grow as much as we just sell to ourselves and direct to consumer. So I don't necessarily see commercializing that beyond that, at least not at this point. And then our next growth area is direct to consumer. So this fall, we're launching our gift baskets and our gift boxes. We make all our own chocolates. We roast all our own coffee. We have our own bakery. And so we are putting together some ways to, and we've done a lot of this over the years, especially in COVID. And our line of chocolates has just taken off. We'll sell a couple million in chocolate this year. And most Americans have never had fresh chocolate. And so to taste chocolate with no fillers, no stabilizers, no emulsifiers, don't increase the melt point, don't extend the shelf life, like really fresh chocolate with that chef's approach. And so we want to be able to ship that product around the country. And so that's another growth path for us.
Well, you're selling past the close on the chocolate. Yeah, I'm in. You don't have to go through. No, two things, a couple things. One, King of Prussia. I always think that's the weirdest named city. But anyway,
I know that's why I clarified, Jamie, of like it's
outside of Philly.
Because if you haven't heard of it, you're like, huh?
No, it's the weirdest thing. But anyway, nice area. And then secondarily, I just have to share this because I just got back from DCA and I had the worst experience at Reagan. And it's not anybody's fault. It was the weather. We got canceled 3 flights out of there. Couldn't get out of the city. So otherwise the airport was nice, but it was crazy there yesterday. Everybody was stressed out. But I want to talk about profitability because you're talking about a system that is got a lot going on, and you're talking about long-term thinking, and a lot of folks are struggling to make payroll this week. Restaurant business is very tough. Margins are thin. I mean, you know this generally speaking. How do you guys think about profitability? And when if you do some consulting still, how do you share lessons about operations to get there? It's not an easy road.
For sure, profit is harder to come by than it ever used to be. And there are some real structural differences in the full service business model than we've ever seen before. I mean, the restaurant full service model performed really well, sort of through when the chain started, call it the 1960s. So we've got 6 decades of a relatively predictable, stable model. People understand their prime costs. They know what they need to do. They understand where the lease factors in. And, whether or not people have the vocabulary for it, all the experienced restaurateurs understand their profit architecture. Where's the leverage? Where's the flow through? Where's the margin? And it works with scale as the fixed costs get leveraged down. depending on where a restaurant is located now, with changes with wages, legislative changes around tipped structure, the impact on supply chain and costs, and frankly, the costs that wrap around the restaurant, legal, HR, it seems that there is legitimately more expenses in the liabilities and the risk prevention category. And at least if you're in a place where, let's say, tourism is soft, or the macroeconomic factors, whether it's GLP-1s or it's tourism or trends with alcohol, or just the economic sort of bifurcation of society, like, seems like a great time in America if you're wealthy and you rode that stock market from 8,000 to 50,000, since the early 2000s. But most people haven't done that. And so I think full service restaurants feel the effect of getting sort of hollowed out. And so what this means is we have to innovate. We need to invent new ways of doing business, whether that's cooking and production, whether that's what goes on the plate, how that's presented, what we price, structural changes. Like what we did with our distillery is a structural cost change. Now that requires, investment, innovation, a team, etc. But I'm confident that over the long run, full service restaurants will figure this out and get back to thriving again. I am also confident that, except for a few outliers, the hardship seems to be really spread across for anyone who's in that, what I think is what I call sort of a normal tier of price point. If you're charging $100 for a steak or $90 for a steak, I don't think you care about legislative effect on wage structure. And I don't think you care about the economy, because you've got 60 seats, 80 seats, 100 seats. You can fill those with super high-end customers. And if you're probably at the low end, I don't mean low in a negative way, but service, structure, fast food, quick service. I think that those can thrive. But in the middle, I think it is tough. So what do? We innovate. That is the challenge. And what I ask myself every morning is, if I got fired and someone really good replaced me, what would they do in their first 100 days? What are the things what are the things I'm scared to decide? What's the history I'm holding on too tight? What's the stuff where I want to argue in support of my limitations, as opposed to coming in as my replacement and saying, we got to try to change this. Let's do that differently. Let go of that. Let's go back to basics on this. We got away from it. And I think that's the advice that I am giving myself, is how we get through these challenging economic times and find a way to thrive.
Yeah. I tell you, I just jotted down a bunch of stuff as I want to do, but so I want to go back through a couple of them. The price point stuff is very different. If you are, working a normal job and you used to go out to dinner 3 or 4 times a week, and now every time, I know when I do this, if we go out with 4 or 5 of us from the family and that bill hits, it's just at a regular place, it's $130, like not the fancy place. That's 5 of us. And I'm used to, in my mind, oh, the family of 5 goes out, it's $80, but now it's $130. You go to quick service and it's $20 a head. So, you go to a nice dinner and all of a sudden you're laying down a lot. So people are choosing eat less, eat different, the markets are segmenting, but yeah, it's a big deal when you go out and spend dollars now. And that market is shifting. And you are seeing innovation with quick service and quick casual and lots of different concepts. And you already pinpointed those folks in the middle are like, what do we do? But the first thing I jotted down early in your talk was, like someone that, let's say today, a chef that's been doing it for a while and says, I want to start my own place. That's a minefield. Like what advice do you give to that guy that may want to jump out with all those costs in mind, with all the struggles? What are some tips for that dude or her?
The first thing I would say is bravo. I love entrepreneurship, and you can't get too wrapped up in the hardships and the low odds of success and everybody else telling all their other pain. Because if you get too wrapped up in that, you'll never do anything. It's dangerous to leave the house. So I say to those with the entrepreneurial itch, drive, go for it. Like, there's no reason you cannot be successful. You absolutely can, no matter who you are. So that's one message that I think I feel passionately about. And I put that hand in hand with, you need better planning than you think. And just running the playbook that has been built in your career up to this point will not be the recipe for success. You can't, especially with all the changes now, you can't just do what you've learned. You have to ensure that you've got your own system for measuring your own playbook and the ability to adapt, pivot, change, whatever, common word that we want to use. The playbook that you launch your restaurant with is not going to work. So the restaurateurs and the chefs who are successful now have not only a playbook and a vision, but the ability to adapt, the ability to look in the mirror, take feedback, because we all know that what kills restaurants isn't that they're not good. It's they can't afford the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's plenty of restaurants that fail that actually, if they had enough capital, they could get through, they could pivot, they could adjust, they could get their sea legs, they could get there, but most fail. They punish the customer and they punish the bank account before they can reach that point, and they fail. So better planning and enough humility that you're scared enough to be a great listener, combined with enough confidence that you're willing to run towards the fear and not away from it. I think that's the recipe for today.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff there. I could dig in there, but I would definitely want to talk about people, which is a big focus of yours. But something you were talking about made me think about tech for a second, because it's an opportunity to shave costs with all the efficiencies you can do, front of house stuff, back of house stuff. I'm curious if there's any tech tool you guys have been using in the last year or so that you found has really helped operations or structurally, or maybe you're dabbling with stuff with AI. What do you think about tech?
I'm really into the native AI companies. I think it's going to be very difficult. It is. We're seeing the evidence. It is difficult for the existing companies, like the existing POS companies. They're all trying to embed AI in their analytics. We use Toast. It's going to be hard for them.
Yep.
It's going to be a difficult journey. It's expensive. Most of them are choosing not to actually use Claude or OpenAI under the hood. So they're using the less expensive, less good LLMs, and they got to figure out how to integrate that. That's going to be hard. They'll eventually get there. I love these. I'm cautious with early stage startups because most fail. But when a company has the right leadership, is well financed, and is a native AI company, and they really are good listeners, or they have a chef or restaurateur that's either one of the founders and they've brought in the right tech folks. So for example, I love this company called Hermetic, native AI company. It sits in the lead funnel for group dining and private dining inquiries, something we get a lot of. Sure. And that we've struggled over the years to really respond as quickly as the guest wants, and to give our people days off, and to not fall behind on response, and cover the inbox and the voicemail, and now the chat on the website. So Hermetic AI has been great. I mean, I don't know, by orders of magnitude, we engage and book way more.
Nice.
Slang AI has been amazing on the phone. And again, there's a lot of AI companies in that space. But I look at the leaders, like that's where I do my vetting. How are you funded? Where's your capital? Do you have the ability to think long-term as a newer company? And what's the track record of the leadership? So both of those companies, I love the folks and the teams that they're building there. And then we're doing a lot. We chose Claude as our enterprise tool a year ago. I set up internally, put 17 of us on our own AI task force to just learn, test, share stuff, go slow with it, and it's really bearing fruit for us in financial analytics, seeing the business with the PMIX the way we otherwise wouldn't have been able to, connecting the dots with who's working on a shift, with what's our error rate on a shift, with what's our guest reviews on a shift. I think we're better at celebrating successes. We're better at finding errors to coach, and the AI tools are helping us do that.
Yeah, well, okay. So I asked the right guy because, yeah, you guys are definitely, I would say you're ahead of the curve in terms of utilization, which is perfect. Sounds like you're in a great spot with the tools. And the ones you mentioned, I didn't know the first one, but even just talking about that, capturing a lead, like a private dining lead or a big catering order, that's not a small thing to think about. That could be 50 people, and that's times 30. I mean, that's a $1,500 to $2,000 order that if you don't pick up the phone in time or respond in time, bam, gone to the next person. Like they're gone. Like they're trying to solve something, and if you don't have a system to get back to them quickly, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just kind of talking to the listeners now. Like, yeah, if you don't have systems in place to capture that, and I know the slang folks do similar with reservations, and just answer and respond to things and like capture that stuff without people. Like those are tools that you got to think about integrating into your operation. And you can maybe elaborate a little bit more, but those, I mean, if folks aren't doing it, you have to do some of that stuff.
As a restaurateur, I'll just speak for myself. I'm not inherently a good salesperson. I haven't built a sales organization. I'm not a sales professional. What I learned to do in restaurants is, there's four walls. You create a guest experience inside so that they tell their friends outside, and more people come in, and we meet the guest where they are, which is outside the front door. And then we would wrap our arms around those guests and inspire those guests to come back the next day. That's not sales. So what I realized was that when it comes to private dining, group dining, and certainly catering, there's a lot of expertise out there. This is a real, like, people build sales organizations, and I don't have that track record, and I don't think most of us in the industry do. And so what happens is someone who was great at working the front desk now becomes the private dining coordinator. Now they're in charge of sales of private dining. But really, who's mentoring them? A restaurant GM, someone who's got restaurant expertise, not sales expertise. So these AI tools like Hermetic, when a guest now sends a web form request, they're engaged with in 8 seconds, and they think they're texting with a human, and they can make a booking. They can ask for availability. They can ask to see menus. And this can happen. Guests have time to book their private events. Maybe it's on the weekends. Maybe it's in the evening when they're home from work. Maybe it's when my people might not be working or answering the phone, but that customer is ready right then. And so the vocabulary I've gotten with, speed to the lead and understanding the funnel and conversion, that's where a tool like this has been so helpful for me, because I would not have been able to build this kind of sales organization on my own. But the tool, the AI tool, is able to do that for me.
Yeah. Thanks for going through that for folks to hear a little bit more. I want to go to people because I read some stuff on you specifically and your organization, culture stuff, mental health stuff. Big focus for you, big belief in it. I know you could talk for an hour on this topic itself, but give us how you think about it, why it's important, especially in the restaurant business. I'll let you kind of riff for a little bit.
It's always been clear to me that there's really no such thing as a company. It's just the aggregation of the work of the people. So my focus is on the people, and people only perform at their best when they are at their strongest physically and mentally, and when they're in a great just overall headspace. They're motivated, they're aligned, they feel seen, valued, and heard. And whatever their own human issues and glitches are, they've got those things in a good place. Now you're able to do the work and aggregate that with the other people on your team. And that is what a company is. So I can ramble on a lot about mental health in the workplace. I did a TEDx talk It's done
Saw
really
that.
well. I don't know, it's got 100,000 views or whatever. But I took 13 minutes and I really made a case for mental health in the workplace. It's a topic for capitalists. You get ROI on the money. And when you come at it that way, it's not about being a bleeding heart liberal and wanting to save the world and making it nice for everybody and being soft. I mean, sure, maybe some of those words might describe me anyways, but regardless, this is a capitalist's topic about ROI. You invest in the people do better work, the business performs better. So that's really my take on mental health. And I don't believe in leave your problems at the door. I think it's the fucking stupidest thing anybody has ever said to anybody ever, because it fundamentally isn't possible, right? It's like leave your left arm at the door. Like, really? How do I do that? So, leave all your problems outside and let's have a great shift. Let's have a great service. This is a dumb thing for a leader to say. I'd rather say like, hey, how are you? Where are you? Like, let's make you feel supported now, like bring your whole you and do that. So we've just tried to build a lot of systems,
Well,
culture.
I saw something. I forget where it was now. Online PR folks. I don't recall, but you have some structural in place for that. Whether it's meetings and counselors, and you've taken it to the next level.
Again, it's no different than saying I'm going to spend X hundreds of dollars on a chair because it creates comfort. It's part of it's part of the dining room experience. We talk about touch points, china, silver, glass, tabletop, all of that. So I just looked at, well, what does it cost to give our people, free access to X number of mental health therapy sessions, and can we pay for that and expose people to that? And you look at the ROI on that in lower absenteeism and lower turnover. I mean, turnover in the restaurant industry does not have to be the abomination that the industry just accepts. You just got to, but when you understand what your turnover really costs you, you don't have a problem deploying your turnover costs into your retention expenses, mental health, getting people into classrooms, getting them off the shift, paying them, investing in education for your people. Jamie, it feels so obvious to me because it's just a business case for ROI. And that's why I always frame it that way. But yes, we've definitely gone with a programmatic, tactical, and cultural approach to, let's just call it like optimizing the human in the workplace.
Have you thought about because that's a big investment, and some folks, let's just go back to an independent that might be just a one location that does want to do some things, but maybe can't go as deep as you're going. Any smaller steps you advise for operators or other small business folks in this regard?
Well, the cultural stuff is free. So as a leader, you can start off your shift meetings with, hey, before we jump into our feature focus of the day, before we talk about the fish of the day, before we talk about some of our most important diners today, I just want to ask you guys, for real, let's take an extra few minutes. How are you? And then stay silent. And if you don't usually do this, you'll be met with deafening silence because nobody will believe you want to hear it. But building that sort of culture where it's like, and sometimes you got to encourage some of your trainers or your lead people to be like, hey, I'm going to ask some questions today. I need you to speak up. And so someone shares their hardship. And then you say, hey, look, you know why I asked you guys this? I want us to focus on the fresh fish. I want us to focus on, table 212 and that party that's at that table tonight. Super important. But I know the only way we're going to do that really well is if we can all let's plug in and connect, and we're going to be a team. So, if your cat's sick and you're stressed because your grandma's ill, or you're struggling with you can't afford your anxiety medication. Hey, you know what? Why don't we just acknowledge this stuff about ourselves? Just acknowledging it actually turns down the volume on how negatively it affects us, which means it turns up the volume when we feel a bit better. Now, let's talk about how we're going to pull together. So for me, you can build the culture by shifting a little bit what you talk about at shift meetings. I try to start every meeting I run with a tidbit or a fact or a topic or a lesson to share around mental health. Annually, when we do our town halls, we bring in mental health speakers. And so just by working it into your vocabulary, creating space for people to talk about it. And when leaders, when I stand up in front of my team and say, hey, you guys, I don't feel great right now. Like, I just started this new GLP-1 medication. It's thrown me a little sideways, but it's going to help me with my eating disorder and my mental thoughts, which I've already shared with you guys. I just wanted to tell you, like, I'm trying out a new thing. If I seem a little off, that's what's going on with me.
Mm.
You might think, like, wow, why would a leader share that? Well, just do the percentages. If you're talking to 20-year employees, right? 15% of them are struggling with a mental health concern. X% of them struggle with their weight. Another percent of them, 80% have some struggle with something right now. So, instead of sort of pretending you're Superman, which you aren't,
Mm-hmm.
and so that, Jimmy, there's a whole bunch of free cultural stuff that any independent operator can figure out how to do. And if you're like, wow, that's just not my style, I'm not comfortable sharing that stuff. Hey, you know what? No problem. Then just look in the mirror and say, but wait, if I'm not comfortable sharing it and my team's not comfortable sharing it, so people are just hiding it, it's like they're walking around with a limp. Wouldn't you give them crutches so they could, like, run food
Love it.
faster? So I think that any leader can just decide, and you don't have to do some huge swing and show up and announce the things I announce. Just a little bit. Show yourself as human, because you're leading humans. And so
Yeah.
you start there, you
Yeah.
see the ROI, you see the cultural shift. And now one person, rather than quitting or not showing up for work, they do come in. They don't blow their shift off. They do talk to you. And look, you just saved 8 hours of overtime for who had to replace them, or you saved some of the terrible Yelp reviews because you didn't have to run short a server. So that's why I try to
That's
connect to
good.
the business stuff. I think it's super motivating.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, and everybody could do that. Yeah, you don't have to invest thousands of dollars or whatever into a structure. You can do that in your meetings. I see some books behind you. Anything you're reading now, or anything you recommend for operators? What do you think?
Uh, Man, this book, look, I can use a lot of words. I talk a lot. I write in a
Uh,
long form, and I know that it doesn't always land. Um, this book, I read it a few months ago. It just absolutely struck me. Smart Brevity is just really on communicating in the in the contemporary era, the
mm,
reality of attention spans,
mm.
and how to hit the message hard, less words. Really, really, really great one. And I've got a few others back there. Mindful Mixology, really good, from Derek Brown. Hacking the Human Mind, just kind of, I've always felt that business is rooted in an understanding of psychology. So I always have some psychology book that I'm reading,
Yeah.
try to keep me plugged in and learning about, why do people taste what they taste? Why do people smell what they smell? Why do people walk out of a restaurant and say it was great? The fact is, it is probably not because that was actually the best hamburger they've ever had. Although they'll say that and they'll mean
Mm.
it and they'll feel it and they'll come back, it's the rest of the chemistry, the psychology wrapped around that experience. So there's always a psych book somewhere on these
Yeah,
shelves.
yeah, that stuff is important. Something that I was surprised to read and see is you are, well, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you actively teaching class or classes at a local university there?
Yeah, I'm an adjunct teacher, adjunct professor at George Washington
Mm.
University. I just teach one course, one semester per year,
Hmm. Yeah,
because it's a big commitment. It's a lot. I
it
usually have
is.
35 students in my class. And the course is entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
which would be the only thing I'm qualified to really teach. And I learned so much from
Mm.
these young people. And
Mm.
anyone who is knocking the younger generation, I think you might want to change your mindset.
Mm.
It, every generation has criticized a generation below it. Like, there's all these, like,
Ah,
comments
yeah,
you can read about the criticisms, then you find out, like, oh, somebody said that in the 1600s about their kids.
yeah.
Um, so I'm not wrapped up in, they have no attention span and they're soft and they don't want to work hard and they, like, the list goes on and on. And I'm thinking, that's not what I see, because I'm not looking for what to criticize.
Hmm.
I'm asking them questions. I'm learning from them. So being in the classroom, it yes, I'm sharing, and I like to think the students find the class valuable. But I am really learning, and a lot of my employees are young as well, and so the classroom gives me an additional way to see the value in their generation, understand how and why they think the way they do, figure out how to create the most value with them. So I love the classroom for that.
Yeah, let's go to. I was going to ask you what you pull out of it, but you hit on a number of things there that you would see. So that's fun. The other thing I read, and this is great too. You can tell me how it comes into play, but helping female entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs, is that local? Is that like what's going on there?
I feel really fortunate. I was raised in a good family. I get along well with my parents. I get along well with my siblings. My parents paid for me to go to college. I've just had a lot of opportunity, and it's clear to me that success is, part luck, part what's handed to you, part support from everybody else around you. And so I feel really grateful. So I try to give back. And, I don't have a ton of money, right? So I can't like give someone $100,000 or donate $1 million to something. And you see people do amazing philanthropy when they have a ton of money, which is awesome. So I just do what I can, which is use my time in a way where it's something I'm pretty good at, the mentoring, understanding entrepreneurship or business. And I try to go where that need is the greatest. And so female entrepreneurs in our industry, it's tougher for them. It's just tougher for 1,000 reasons that hopefully everybody understands. It's just tougher. So why wouldn't I put some of my intentional mentoring there? I feel the same way about, let's just call it any minority, when the deck is sort of stacked against you, so this is just like one hand that reaches out and lifts you up. And so in my small ways, I do that. I help some folks pay for their college when they're in debt and need to be able to get to graduation. I invite certain folks to sit in on my college class if they couldn't afford college, but they could sit in on a course. I just look for ways to help. And it's rewarding. I mean, look, I'm doing it for me because it makes me feel better. So it's not like I deserve credit for it. It's selfish. Makes me sleep better at night. So it is like I get the benefit of doing it.
This is a day where life kind of overlaps. I mean, these will come out at different times, but earlier today I interviewed Brianna Keefe from Tostique, which is in DC area. And then I said, I'll be talking with you later today. And she said she's been to your restaurants, but you guys haven't met. But she started one operation and has grown to 65 plus, and it's a smaller quick service casual stuff. But you guys should definitely connect sometime in the future. Since you're in the same area, I'm sure you have some interesting stories to tell. She was super passionate about what they're growing as you are. But yeah, it's great to give folks advice along the way. The other spot you seem to do that, and I haven't listened to an episode yet, and I look forward to it. But you do a podcast yourself where you're talking to founders. Is it DC area founders? Yeah.
So yeah, my podcast is called Founding DC. Thanks for asking about it. And it's not restaurant industry specific. It is a entrepreneurship show for all the guests have founded a company, and all of the companies are either in DC, Maryland, or Virginia. And so it's just a show about trying to unpack the truth, the messier stuff, the grittier stuff, the human lessons learned from founders in this area. And I do the show in partnership with a big radio station here, WTOP. So I'm fortunate for their resources and their backing. We've had some great guests. We're just finishing up season 2 now. And again, I learn a ton. I get to sit down with some of these billionaire founders and also newer small business founders. And so there are lessons from everyone, regardless of what you might see on the outside of it. And it's been really fun.
Yeah, well then exactly. Yeah, that Brianna who I met is a local founder. Maybe you guys should definitely maybe connect. But
yeah, I'd love to connect. I'd love to connect with her.
The other thing I saw, which was interesting, and one of the last things that I'll say, and we'll talk about a few other things, but there's a nonprofit or a charity related to the straws and I have it somewhere. Our Last Straw. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so this was pre-COVID. I was really passionate. My kids were younger, so I probably started this 10 years ago. It's a nonprofit called Our Last Straw.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was really focused on was actually working upstream with manufacturers and with legislators. I saw this regulation coming in to affect our industry with a lack of understanding that, like, if you just ban plastic straws, but you don't give us a good replacement that works for the diner, that actually performs the function and that we can afford, then you're just a, zealot. And I'm really opposed to these people, whether you're like on the this edge of the political spectrum or this side, or you're so far down like the road on your issue, let's call it the environment of single-use plastics, that you're disconnected from the reality, economy, how things work, how you get solutions that really stick. And so we had a lot of success working with manufacturers, explaining like, hey, you can get investors to invest in non-oil based products, bioplastics, or like non-plastic at all, but other new inventions. And if you invest your money there, there's a market. Restaurants will buy these things. Here's the price point, etc. And then working with legislators to ban traditional petroleum-based plastics. And it was really successful. We got good legislation written in Maryland and in DC, while simultaneously propelling the supply chain for products that could really work for restaurants and that we could afford to do. So I really haven't worked on it much. COVID like knocked me off some of my mission-driven stuff and got me super focused in business survival. And there's been so much momentum actually made in that category that I feel really good about the small part that I played in helping amplify that message.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely something that could be solved. But some of the interim solutions in between have not made the customer happy. Like, oh, this is good for the environment, but oh God, I can't use this. It's like, don't do that. Last question I'll throw at you: industry, 3 to 5 years. There's AI. There's robots in the kitchen. I saw a delivery bot delivering stuff when I was visiting DC. Like, what do you see coming down the pike in the restaurant industry in the near term here?
I believe deeply that hospitality, the touching people's hearts, creating memories, will always win the day. And I believe that technology, for the restaurateurs who use it, what I would say the right way, will just get better and better at being able to look people in the eye, be there for the guest, have their employees feel successful, and deliver those memorable human to human moments. I think that the technology is absolutely going to destroy jobs. I think it will create other jobs, like for example, delivery drivers. I was on Ohio State's campus with my kid a few weeks ago and doing a college visit. I must have seen 50 Grubhub robots making deliveries.
Wow.
And that was in one day. Those are 50 deliveries that a human used to make. So jobs are changing. The robots are here. They're not just coming. And it will displace some jobs. And it's like, look, I use AI to respond and engage more quickly with diners who want to book or create a special event, etc., which is good because then my group dining managers aren't so stressed out, feeling like they need to respond 24/7 to people, and they can actually have the AI schedule time in person for when that guest wants to come and meet them and do a walkthrough. And it's on their calendar, it's effectively scheduled, and the human gets to do what will forever be, I think forever be unique to human, which is connect heart to heart, eye to eye, and deliver the hospitality. So I see a ton of disruption, but I'm an optimist that people still got to feel loved. The food's still got to be delicious. There's always going to be customers, I guess, I see in the fast casual and the quick service space where all this money invested in like the robots can make the bowls, serve the bowls, like this like sort of like food depot where there doesn't need to be any humans, and then it can be delivered or you pick it up or whatever. Sure, people got to eat. I think that's a real business. I don't have any interest in that because I'm in the hospitality business, and I want to keep carving out space for our humans to make the lives of other humans better. So those humans want to spend their money with us. So I guess I see a lot of change coming in both ways, but I see benefit from the disruption, not just destruction from the disruption.
Yeah, that is absolutely wild on campus that you saw so many robots. I saw like 2 or 3 when I was in DC, just randomly going down the street.
And Jamie, I'm not kidding. 50, like minimum 50.
Wild.
They are all over that campus.
That's wild. Yeah, I'm looking at. I'm like, where's this dude going to go in traffic? I see it better. I could see it on campus, but I still can't figure out the last mile. Maybe they get a text. They meet him on the corner. They pick up their food. It's a weird idea, but it is displacing people for sure. So we covered a lot. This has been super awesome. Parting thoughts. Send them to websites, socials, anywhere you want. Anything you can think of. Go for it.
Sure, folks can find me on all the social platforms at Dan Simons Says. The restaurants and the catering company, you can find foundingfarmers.com. I love talking to people on LinkedIn. I love to get the feedback. I love the dialogue. The podcast is called Founding DC, and I just love engaging with folks out there, and I appreciate the chance to be on your show.
Yeah, we covered a lot. This has been super, super terrific. Folks, Dan Simons of Founding Farmers. You can find him on the web at foundingfarmers.com. He is also at dansimonsays.com, where you can find the other links to that he mentioned. So for more stuff from us, runningrestaurants.com, marketing, operations, service, people, tech, and more, you can tune in there. In the meantime, take one split second, wherever you're listening or watching, like please hit a like button or a rate or review, wherever you are. That would be super helpful. I would appreciate it. Good stuff, Dan. Thanks much.
Thanks so much for having me.